Deitha, Obi Nakan. Welcome to podcast number 174. I'm on autopilot a bit this week. I'll explain in a minute. But since I spoke to you last, we was back into work on last Friday. We had a private funeral there, which was a lovely, intimate affair again. And then I had planned for all the weekend to have a weekend of paperwork. That's what I had planned. But things didn't quite work out like that. It started Saturday morning, 2:15, I think it was. We had a call. I got back into bed about 4:00. And then about 5:10, the phone went again. We had another call. We had other calls during the day as well. So no time for paperwork. So I went to bed Saturday night, and then midnight, we had another call and another call Sunday morning. So I did paperwork Sunday afternoon, but nowhere near as much as I really wanted to. But it's one of those things that you could go weeks without, with not having a call during the night, and then you just get a run of them. And that's what happened. So me and Andrew, I saw more of Andrew than his wife Julia did. And that includes in the nighttime, which is a bit worrying, really. But one of the calls we had, it was quite funny because, you got to have a safety valve for this profession, because if you don't, you would lose it. You really would. So we do have a bit of humour sort of thing. And we're going out to one of the nursing homes, and then in our mirror, we see that there's an ambulance coming behind us, blue flashing lights. So, of course, Andrew pulls over and lets him go by. And, of course, jokingly, I say to him, "What the hang are he doing? They could be going where we're going to, and they might do us out of work," sort of thing. So anyway, we had a laugh about that. So we got to the nursing home, and sure enough, ambulance was there. In fact, there was 2 ambulances there, and they was having a bit of a debrief. They saw us pull up, and we all had this conversation pretty much at the same time, which kind of went along the lines that, were we too early or was they too late? And would they be trying to revive the person that we'd come to take into our care? So that was a bit strange to see 3 ambulances there at the nursing home, 2 proper ambulances, and then our private ambulance. But so that was quite a weekend. I don't think I've got over it since, actually, because I don't sleep very well anyway, as you all know. But when I get back into bed, it does take me an hour or so to get back to sleep. But then we were on to Monday, and Monday we had Denise's funeral at St. Tath. Denise, pretty much the same age as me, and things didn't go to plan there either, because we'd had a hang of a frost, and the idea was that the hearse was going to go to the house and do a lovely route, quite a long route around where Denise used to live and everything. And that had to be abandoned because there was black ice everywhere. And we had a message back that the way we were going to go, which was up Camelford Way, a lorry had hit a bus, the roads was blocked. Somewhere else, a lorry had jackknifed. And I saw John in church, actually, one of the locals there at St. Tath. And he said it's got worse as the day got on. He said, I was in the square this morning about 7-ish, 7:30, and it was fine. And just like a glass bottle now. So that did change the plans a little bit to what we was going to do. But, the church was full. We had our PA system. We did have a few outside as well. We tried to get in as many as we could. But, dear Denise, she really would have loved that. And then Tuesday, we had a bridger. And I tell you what, we've lost a load of bridgers lately. Now, when I say a bridger, to somebody that's born and brought up, or if not born here, because like a lot of children now, like my grandson, which have I mentioned that? Yes, I did last week. Born down at Trelisk, down at Truro. But and of course, some people move into town, but have been here from a very young age. Always considered a bridger, and that's somebody that have lived in Wadebridge. They're a bridger. 'Tis like if you born and bred in Padstow, you're a Padstonian. At Wadebridge, you're a bridger. I don't know about other places. Perhaps if anybody wants to put a message sent to me for other towns, what you would call them. I've never really thought of that. But yeah, we had a service for Vic. You would have seen it again on our announcements page. And Vic was a true bridger, born and bred. And I did have a fantastic honour. The family actually asked me if I would give the eulogy. And like I said at the beginning of the eulogy, Vic being that little bit older than me, he knew me all of my life. But obviously being younger, I didn't know him for all of his. So I was grateful to the family. They wrote the eulogy, which I read on their behalf. But yeah, lovely chap. He did so much for the town with charities and everything, and involved in so much. And again, the church was full. We had to put extra chairs out. There was people standing. It was a wonderful send-off to Vic. And I did hear a couple of stories after, actually, that if I'd heard them before, I think I would have spoke to Vic's family and said, here, can I include these in the eulogy? Because they was lovely little stories. There was one, I think Dumpsy told somebody there in church. Vic, obviously, he played darts. That was one of the things he did in the leagues here in town. And he had a habit of when he'd thrown the third dart, he would slap his thigh. I suppose a bit like, was it be Robin Hood, where you slap your thigh? Oh, crumbs, I just hit me book there. Where you slap your thigh. Now, he was playing this one game and he was so involved in it. It was so intense. After his second dart, he kind of lost count and he went and slapped his thigh and stabbed his leg with the dart, which is the spectators did find quite amusing. I don't know if Vic did or no. And then Tony was telling me a story, and I thought this was lovely. Vic had been given, or had the chance to have bankrupt stock from a company, obviously, that had gone out of business, bankrupt stock of a few Christmas cards. So Vic went to the social club, saw Tony there, and said, here, do we think we could sell? I've got a few of them, few Christmas cards. Do you think we could sell them down here at the club for charity, whatever? Perhaps some go towards the club to help keep it running, but others to charity sort of thing. So Tony said, yeah, fantastic idea. So anyway, Vic turns up with 10,000 Christmas cards. And they sold so many of them that the actual, one of the local card shops in town actually sent the club a letter to say, please, can you stop selling these cards? Because we ain't selling any at all. You'll put us out of business. So I thought that was a lovely little story. But it says a lot about Vic. Did so much for charity. It really did. And I know that he'll be missed. He really will. Right from the start, he did a tandem ride, I think, from John O'Groats to Land's End was the first charity work he did. And then going on to the last bit, you would have seen him, any locals, outside the John Betchman Centre selling jigsaws and things like that. So wish you well, Vic. Wish you well, mate. Wednesday was quite a busy day. We did have a couple of, private services. We had one of these 8:30 services first, and then we had a private service. I never say the name if the service is private. But the family, they went for a lovely wicker coffin, which we do quite a few wicker coffins, I must admit. But this time they went for a darker one, which I'd never had one of those before. We normally go for the kind of the light brown, medium brown colour, and this was a darker brown. And I saw the photo in the book. I thought, I don't know if I'm going to like this or no. But I tell you what, when it came, it was stunning, absolutely stunning. And the family had done a lovely floral tribute. Should I say countrified? I don't know. It was a real natural tribute anyway. It was fantastic. So we had a lovely service there, I must admit, with lots of family participation and music and everything. And then followed that with another funeral for Lawrence as well. So, and that was lovely as well. A lovely eulogy again. It was, a good day. And then our limo was out on hire again as well. So then we was on to Thursday, and we was up St. Breward. You would have seen it in our announcements for Roger's funeral, or Brew. And I did put a photo on Facebook, actually, because Christmas is over now. The decorations are coming down, but they still have this lovely arch right at the back of the church, just as you go up the aisle. So if you go on our RJ Bray Facebook page, I'll put it there. I think I also put it on our Instagram page. I tend to forget to put things on Instagram, but I'm sure I put it on there as well. But what a crowd it was. Again, a fantastic crowd. People standing. It's lovely, really, that these big funerals are coming back. It's taken a while after COVID. It's really taken a long time. But again, it was another fantastically attended funeral, and which I know he would have loved. And St. Breward, compared to Wadebridge, I would say you almost need extra layer for the weather, because it was blimmin' cold up there. We've had a horrible weather this week anyway, but God, it was blimmin' cold. And I think for years, like running and cycling in the cold, I get chilblains quite easily on my fingers, and I got them today, and I'm blaming St. Breward for that. And then on to today. I'm actually recording this on Friday. It's now 8:25, Friday evening, and this is the first chance I've had to even think about doing the podcast this week. Leaving it a bit dicey. I could have a call. I could be doing it 1:00 in the morning, but we had dear Lisa's funeral. Lisa, same age as me, known her for years, a fantastic runner. I mean, the running community is a lovely community, even for people like me that don't like running. It really is. And so I've known Gary, Lisa's husband, all my life. We went to school together. I think he was a school year younger than me. But it was terribly sad when Lisa passed away. And gosh, she would have loved it today. I did say, I put a photo again on our social media, well, on our Facebook page. I haven't put it on Instagram yet. I ought to, really, because they wanted colourful, cheerful, colourful, quirky colours. And I said to Gar and also to Lisa's daughter, I'm thinking, if you don't mind, I'll wear me top hat and tails, me striped trousers, but I'll choose the brightest T-shirt that I've got from the London Marathon, and I'll wear me running shoes. And they thought that was good. So that's what I did. And the floral tribute was fantastic. Lisa's running shoes surrounded by flowers. I did put a photo on as well. The crowd there. We were at Penmount. The chapel was full. They were standing at the back of the chapel. The two waiting little areas, they were standing with a few outside. It was heaving, absolutely heaving. She was very well loved. And I think she would have loved how everything went. And then I was right back to Glyn Valley for Bill's funeral. Again, you would have seen it on our notices. And again, another massive funeral. And it was so cold. It really was. But the chapel was full again. People standing outside in the waiting room. And a lot of Bill's workmates there, because Bill had been with the same company for decades. And again, I think he would have loved it. Yeah, I think he really would have. So it's been a pressure week because obviously every funeral has got to go perfect. And it's always the added pressure when there's a big number of people involved, which we've got again tomorrow, which I will talk about next week. But tomorrow I'm in the countryside. I would say going to a church that holds 100 people, and we're expecting 200. So we've set our PA system up this morning, all geared up and ready to go. But it does add a bit of pressure, I must admit. So that's been my week anyway. I thought what I would do, because I did have a notice come from the hosting company that does the podcast, and it was quite interesting, really. All the information they've given me on the podcast and everything. So, like worldwide, this hosting company, I'm in the top 25 worldwide of podcasters. Well, how crazy is that to start off with? But also on top of that, they said that in the last year, all you people, you fantastic people listening to this, you've been listening to it in 55 different countries, which it just blows my mind. 55 different countries. So I just thank you so much. Apparently, you can spread the word if you comment or share it or like the podcast. It's all out of my, not my hands, it's all out of my comprehension. I can't get my head around all this, but if you comment on it or like it or share it, it does get it out to even more people. And like I said, I don't make any money out of the podcast. I started doing it for information and I love it so much. It's pressure, but it's still going. But it did make me think the fact that 55 different countries, and I think sometimes I might, like today, I haven't had a chance to interview anyone. So I thought I'd just give everybody that don't live local a bit of background about where I live, because Bridgers would know it, as we call ourselves. Bridgers would know it. But as you go further afield, a lot of people wouldn't. So I thought I'd give it a go. Now, I say I'm a Bridger. I was born here in Wadebridge. Got a bit of mixed up here going along the line. My grand's family, they now live at Burlawn. They did live Trevanion Road in Wadebridge. Generations before that, they lived Eglosale. Generations before that, they lived Eglosale Village. So they've been in Wadebridge for generations, which is the Bridger side. That's my dad's mother. My dad's father, they was all Withiel. And like I've said before, we go back to the 1700s there with the Brays. And I was the first one of our line not to be born in Withiel, born in Wadebridge. Mother's side is a bit more mixed up. She was born Little Petherick, but they come from St Austell, Mevagissey, St Stephen sort of way. But on my grand side, it was the Bridger sort of thing. So I've done a bit of research, believe it or not, because I wanted to get a few facts right. For example, like in 2021, the census said the population of Wadebridge was 6,811. Now, it have grown a bit since then. If you don't live round here, I would say all of Cornwall, I don't know. I mean, all the surrounding towns that I know, they are just growing so fast. The amount of house building that's going on is unbelievable, really. Wadebridge, Padstow, Bodmin, Newquay, St Austell, Truro, the houses are just shooting up. Would it be too fast? I don't know. I mean, it's a worry for us. You know, the amenities, can they cope? The doctors, the hospitals and everything. But that's what it was in 2021. It was 6,811. Now, originally, the actual town was called Wade. Obviously not Wadebridge, Wade. And the reason for that is that at the river, where it kind of became almost a ford, it was, in the river, you'd have to wade across. You'd walk across. So this ford in the River Camel, which comes from the Cornish Cam Hale, which is crooked estuary, you walk across, but the interesting thing was they'd have a chapel on each bank. So you would go in one chapel and you pray for a safe crossing. And then when you get there the other side, you would then go in and give thanks to God that you had made it across the other side. I'm not sure which was which. I think they said that King's Chapel was on the north side of the river, the ford, and St Michael's Chapel was on the south side, if I'm right. Another thing I didn't know until I actually did the research was that in 1312, Edward II granted a license for there to be a market at Wade. And of course, we had the market. I can remember, well, even the cattle market. When I was a boy, we still had the market there. And also, it granted that twice a year there would be fairs in Wadebridge on the feast of St. Vitalis and at Michaelmas. So that was quite interesting. Wade was actually a part of St. Breock parish, and then on the other side of the river was Eglesale parish. Well, of course, these days, 'tis all swallowed up, I'm afraid, so it's Eglesale Wadebridge sort of thing. Now, going back then, they did have some sort of ferry as well to help people across perhaps when the tide was a bit higher. But then there was a vicar of Eglesale at the time, was Reverend Thomas Lovibond, and he got quite upset with the number of people and animals that actually did die while crossing the River Camel. So he planned the building of the bridge, and that was completed in 1468. So then Wade became known as Wadebridge. So they started building the bridge in 1468, and it was finished in 1485. And it was always said that the bridge was built on wool sacks of wool. So it was known as the Bridge on Wool. Now, whether that was actually true or whether it was built using the money from perhaps some sheep farming, I'm not too sure. But there was always, that was the legend, that the piers was always on bags or sacks of wool. Now, the bridge was quite important in the English Civil War, and in 1646, Oliver Cromwell came with 500 dragoons and 1,000 horsemen to take the bridge, which I'd never realised. And then when the bridge was completed, first of all, they would charge tolls for its maintenance. So every time you went over, you had to pay a toll. It was widened in 1853 from 3 metres to 5 metres, or as we would know, 10 to 16 feet. And then it was widened again in 1952, and then again in 1963. And that went up to 39 foot. And I think that time my Uncle Ken was working on it then. He wasn't there on the first one, but he was there on the last one. And while we're talking about that, that was one of the things mentioned in Vic's eulogy, was the fact that when he went to school, the bridge, it was before 1963, so it was still narrow. There was no pavements, and you will see the little recesses. So if you was walking along and traffic was coming, you'd have to dive into one of these recesses just so that the traffic could go by. I would say after the bridge, the next big thing that happened to Wadebridge was the railway. And in 1831, Sir William Molesworth of Pencarrow, I know I've mentioned Pencarrow before, I think he commissioned the building of the railway line, the Bodmin and Wadebridge Railway, for £35,000. I think one of the purposes when it was built was to carry sand from the Camel Estuary to the inland farms for fertiliser. And then it opened September 1834, when the locomotive Camel pulled a train with 400 passengers. And it was one of the first railways in Britain to actually carry passengers. Now, a funny story, and I think this is right, when the company ordered a second locomotive, it came with the nameplate already fixed to it. And the name of the train was Elephant. And the makers didn't realise that when the first engine was named Camel, it was after the River Camel, and they thought it was named after an animal, so the second train was called Elephant. The last passenger train to leave Wadebridge was in 1967. And then I think the train did run for a few years afterwards, not for passengers, but for business, for, would it be still the Sand? I'm not too sure. I can remember going to school and the train still going. You had the level crossing where the gates come across to stop the cars going across the railway line. So that would have been a couple of years after 67, but the passenger side had finished by then. I think a lot of the materials used for building the railway weren't brought to Wadebridge by the road, but it was actually brought up the river. So there was a lot of quays at the time at Wadebridge as well. So everything was brought up river. Even to today, running parallel with the river is Eddystone Road. And the reason that's called that is that in 1877, there was cracks appearing in the rock at Eddystone Lighthouse. So a new lighthouse had to be built, and all the granite come from Delank Quarry, which is up St Breward Way, and then brought down to Wadebridge, where the stonemasons, they cut the stone, they dovetailed each segment of stone that would fit into each other sideways, above and below, and then it was sent to build the Eddystone Lighthouse, and that one was built and it was completed in 1882. So I think that gives you a bit of history of a lot of the changes, the major changes, shall I say, that happened to the town. In my living memory, I think the main thing that happened was in 1991 when the bypass opened. Now, obviously, with the trains, with the railway being pulled up, which is now the Camel Trail, which goes all the way from Padstow through Wadebridge, and then it splits. You can either go up to St Breward or up to Bodmin, which is very popular for not only for the tourists, but also for the locals. And I know that I've pounded that Camel Trail miles in my marathon training when I did the London Marathon for all those years. But when the railway line was pulled up, obviously there was more and more cars. And with just that one bridge, I can remember in the summertime, it would take at least a half hour to get from Egglesell Church to the bridge, which is under a mile. And you just queue in there. The engines, obviously it was polluted because engines are a lot cleaner now than what they was back then. And our friend Basil, the traffic warden, to perhaps help out, he would be there on the traffic lights, on the crossroads by the chip shop, trying to manually control the traffic. We got a main street in Wadebridge, which is now pedestrianised, but the traffic used to go up there. And I think that's really changed the town when they had the bypass, because you just couldn't get anywhere in the summer. You had lots of little rat runs just as you approach Wadebridge, but in the height of the summer, the traffic could be queued, 2 miles out of town. And so now we've actually got 3 bridges, because there's also the Anarchist Bridge, some people call it. I did mention it in a few podcasts with Janet Delacour a few episodes ago now, which is a footbridge. Some people call it the Bailey Bridge because Dr. Bailey thought about it. And it was the TV programme where basically Annika Rice is given 3 days to build a bridge. Well, didn't quite like that. A lot of the research and obviously what was needed was done before. But now we have got the 3 bridges. We got that footbridge going over the Camel. Then we got the old bridge that is used if you get in about town. And then further down towards Padstow, you've got the bypass bridge, which you can avoid Wadebridge altogether. We've still got a few nice pubs here in town. I know nationwide pubs are closing. One of the older ones, perhaps, I don't know, that's still going is the Molesworth Arms up Molesworth Street. And I didn't realise that previously it was known as the Fox, the King's Arms and the Fountain, but it was changed to the Molesworth Arms in 1817. And then, as I've mentioned every year on the podcast, we got the Royal Cornwall Agricultural Show, which is 3 days in, it's usually the 6th, 7th, 8th sort of time of June, which is absolutely massive. It really is. It's a big event. It's not just agriculture, it's so many other different things. So that draws a lot of people to the town or just outside the town for 3 days in June. So that gives you a bit of history for anybody that don't know, that's living out there in podcast world, of the town that I live in, Wadebridge. Like I say, I was born here, and I think I've moved, no further than a mile from my birthplace. We do go out walking. Some evenings we'll go out around town, a bit different, and we'll go down past where I was born, and I look, and there's still in the blue plaque up on the wall where I was born at the house. But then I think I realised afterwards you got to be dead before they put one up. So they don't want me one put anyway. But I do joke about that. But it have changed a hang of lot, I must admit, the last few years. But it's still a lovely town, lovely people, lovely community. But I'm biased. But there we are. So I hope you found it interesting. I mean, I did a bit of research to do this, and I found out a few things that I didn't know about it. And I think I will do perhaps other bits in the future, but I just wanted to give anybody out there, anywhere in the world, a little idea what Wadebridge is like. So I will be a bit lazy because I'm getting tired. I want to go to bed. I think the dialect for the week will be just Bridger, because that's kind of the local dialect. Somebody who was born, brought up here in Wadebridge is a Bridger. And we've had a few Bridgers' funerals lately, and I'm afraid we got a few more in the next week or two as well. And for me, Cornish language, I will do it for Bridge on Wool. Like I say, there's the old legend that the bridge was actually built. The piers were on the sacks of wool. I don't know, we still got the pub in town, the Bridge on Wool. So the Cornish for that is Ponswar Gwalan. Ponswar Galan. Right, well, that's it for now. I'm open. I know I've said it the last 2 weeks, but I'm open next week. I'll have an interview for it. If not, I got something else a little special up my sleeve. I've had to buy a bit of extra equipment to see if it'll work. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for that. But I'm open next week. It will be a bit different, and you won't be stuck just with me. But have a good week, and I will speak to you again next week. Wish you well. Do Guinness. Carnabis Ficken.